Great question that came in. That is a question I have been asked for years now, and I've actually never answered it. I've always kept the answer to myself, close to my sleeve. But I'll use this opportunity now to answer it, and it involves my career in the world of pro wrestling and the WWE. And the question was actually multiple questions by one person, which I appreciate the detail. It revolves around my retirement from the WWE. So the question was, and I think I'm going to get this right, is officially, when did I retire from the WWE? Why? Which is always a great question to understand our whys. Why did I retire from the WWE? Why did I return to the WWE years later? And why did I retire again? I retired from the WWE in 2004 at the age of 32. And at that time, here's the why. Why I retired was two reasons. Number one, and this is not in order of importance, number one, my contract had expired. And number two, which is the most important thing, is an agreement that I have with anybody in the world, any company, any individual. It's always important to me. It means everything to me to shake that person's hand and look them in the eye. We could bring in lawyers from all over the world. We could bring in the best of the best in business affairs and sign contracts and all that. But it all comes down, for me, it all comes down with me looking you in the eyes and shaking your hand. So, and delivering what I gave you my word that I was going to deliver. So I'm saying that to say in 2004, when my contract expired, I had delivered on my agreement with the WWE and with my longtime mentor and very, very good friend, Vince McMahon. We shook hands. I mean, that's the way we are. We shake hands. And look, even these big ass dinosaur mitts, that are all fucked up with calluses, excuse my language, it's very important to me, the handshake. So in 2004, I had my very last match in, of all places, the Mecca, Madison Square Garden, the most famous arena in the world. And what's ironic about that, and it's so kismet in a way, how the universe works. I started my career, I had my very first match in the WWE in Madison Square Garden in 1996. That New York City crowd, let me tell you something, it sounds like a cliche, that if you can make it in New York, you can make it anywhere. But that's true. And that night, that city embraced me like a son and launched my career, which is why I always consider New York City my home away from home. I had my very first match in 1996 in Madison Square Garden and my very last match in 2004 in Madison Square Garden. I started my career at 25 years old with the WWE, and I ended it when I was 32. A 7-year run. So in my life, as a lot of you guys know, the number 7 means a lot. $7, 7 years. So I had a 7-year career that was just so blessed, and I was so fortunate. It was beyond my wildest of wildest dreams. So in 2004, I retired. Two reasons. The why was I wanted to give my word and complete what I had given my word that I was going to complete, which was my contract. The other reason why, and again, this is why in life it's so important that we identify our whys on why we do things. And once we identify that, it's like a shift and click moment for all of us. Once you identify your why that you're going to do, whatever you're going to do in life, it's shift, click, and then you go. And then the power in that, when you have that kind of clarity for the why. So I had a philosophy when I was 32 at that time, and I couldn't share it with a lot of people because a lot of people would have thought you are out of your, excuse my language, you're out of your fucking mind for leaving the WWE and retiring. Why? Because I was on top. I was the biggest #1 draw in professional wrestling in the WWE, and I was quietly retiring. Again, my contract had ended, but my philosophy, my strategy at that time was, I'm in a world of pro wrestling that I grew up in, and I have a long lineage of my dad, my grandfather. I have, wrestlers, a long line of wrestlers. I come from a long line of pro wrestlers, proud, crazy pro wrestlers, and I have such a love and reverence for the world of professional wrestling. I felt like at 32 years old, my Hollywood career was just getting started. if I can leave and quietly retire from this world that I love so much, and I know it was a hard thing for a lot of people to swallow, this philosophy, if I could leave and become successful in Hollywood and become successful outside of the world of professional wrestling, of the world of WWE, when I mean successful, like my ambition was, I wanted global success. I wanted to have global influence in a very, very real and powerful way. That was my goal. And by the way, in all likelihood, I was going to fail because the odds are always against somebody when you go to Hollywood, and especially under those circumstances. So the thought was that if I could go and if I could have success outside of the world of wrestling, and then years later, and I knew it was going to take years, if I was fortunate enough to have this kind of success, then come back to the world of the WWE, but this time as a global entity. This time I could help bring a greater value to the company of the WWE. And not only that, but also bring a greater value to the locker room and to the men and the women who just sacrifice and commit so much of their life to this business. And I thought if I could come back as a greater asset, then it would pay off in so many ways across the board. And again, you never know how these things are going to work out. That was a long-term goal that I had. I quietly retired in 2004. I said goodbye to Vince McMahon, gave him a big hug, and I was on my way. And by the way, I should say he completely supported it too, by the way. He said I was crazy. I said, well, we're both crazy, so it keeps us from going insane. I called Vince McMahon, we spoke in 2011, and I said, I think it's time. And he goes, I think it's time too. We mapped out a plan to come back and have a series of matches, come back out of retirement. So in 2012, I had my very first match. I had a series of 4 matches when I returned to the WWE. By the way, the crowd embraced me, the WWE universe embraced me, the locker room embraced me, the company, and I was really, really so excited because this is it. This is my opportunity to give back to something that was so good to me, this world of pro wrestling. So I come back, I had my first match in 2012 in Madison Square Garden, no less, an incredible night. And then the company, a few months later, the company puts the WWE Championship on me, so I become WWE Champion. And now again, keep in mind, we have a big strategy, a big lead up to main event 2 WrestleManias back to back. And it was with a buddy of mine, John Cena. And John and I agreed on what we were going to do. And again, you never know how these things are going to turn out. So I was a little anxious, a little nervous. I was so confident. You know, I felt like I had my fastball and I was still kicking ass and we're going to have a great match. I had my cardio, my conditioning, everything felt great. We go into WrestleMania, and this is the telltale sign if this strategy worked. For me, almost 10 years. I went away, built my career to come back, and it all boils down to this. WrestleMania in Miami, my hometown, my family was there. We sold out that stadium. I'm blessed to have the main event with John Cena. We have the match. I go over, and in wrestling terms, going over means I won. Afterwards, go home, and a few days later, I get a call from Vince McMahon, and he said, what are you doing? I said, well, I'm driving. He goes, you might want to pull over. I said, listen, let me tell you something. I said, anything you're going to tell me right now as it relates to our business and the buy rate, the pay-per-view we just did at WrestleMania, any success you're going to share with me, or I'm ready for it, any failure that you're going to set, that you're going to give me, I'm calm and cool in the pocket. Go ahead. So I'm driving in my truck. He said, congratulations, you have just set an all-time record in the history of professional wrestling, in the history of the WWE. You shattered buy rate records, box office records, gate attendance records. Congratulations. We hung up. I pulled over and I had a moment because it was so gratifying for me. And the gratification was I knew that this was the way I can give back to this business And I also knew, the effect of that is the tentacles that it affects the company, brings value to the company, changes the perception of the WWE, and also it increases the paychecks of everybody in the locker room. And that's the bottom line. The main thing is always to keep the main thing, and the main thing is money, and to make money. And for these men and women who put their bodies on the line every night, it meant so much to me that I, in my way, could add to their bank account. And so we had a match 1 year later at MetLife Stadium, New York. Again, New York City. Again, very, very befitting for me. I went into that match, 2013, MetLife Stadium, sold out, 80,000 plus people. I went in as WWE champion and facing John Cena. And I knew that that was going to be my very last match in the WWE. And I was going to close out my career in New York City. But I was also going to close out my career the way I felt it was appropriate, in the respectful way. And that particular way, for me in particular, a man in my position, the right way to do it was how we did it, which was I'm laying on my back. I get beat 1, 2, 3. I'm looking up at the stars and I'm counting my blessings. And I make John Cena champion. Company makes him champion. He goes on to lead the company and be the man. Now, what I didn't anticipate was in that match, I got really injured. I had tore the top of my quadricep and my adductor. Your adductor is a tendon that kind of runs all the way up in your leg and allows you to kind of do these, these butterfly moves with your legs and things like that. So I tore the adductor and my quad off my pelvis. Lost feeling in my leg about 10 minutes into the match. I had another 20 minutes to go. I was laying there and I thought, well, there's no bone sticking out. So my cards are going to be what they're going to be right now. And I'm going to finish this match. And again, to identify the why. Why was it important for me to finish the match? Because an injury that severe, I would have been well within my right and appropriate to tell the referee and tell John Cena in the middle of the match, I can't go. I don't know what the fuck just happened to my leg. I can't feel it, nor can I really move it. So I have to rely on momentum to kind of move my leg. I said, something's really wrong. I could have, but I didn't. Why? Because handshake. I gave my word that I was going to finish that match and put on a show for the fans, for the company, and for my opponent, John Cena, who's my dance partner, and for the locker room, the men and women in the locker room, and how important that was. So, there's that old saying, you either come back with your shield or you come back on it. I came back on mine, finished the match. And I was so at peace to know that that was my very last match. So this is 13 and a half minutes of your life you're never gonna get back. That is that's the big, when did you retire and why did you retire? Questions that have been burning in the WWE universe and so many people around the world. So that is it. And was I emotional about it? No, I was so at peace because again, I gave back to a business that I love, and that's the way I give back. Will I go back for another match? I could. You never say never. Never say no in WWE, but I enjoy my role now of going out and continuing to build my career outside of wrestling and continuing to have a greater global influence and a power outside of wrestling, and come back in when I can, hit my music. If you smell, hit the top rope, do that, raise that eyebrow, hit somebody with a rock bottom of people's elbow, talk shit on the mic, have a blast, the crowd goes bananas, and I say, I'll see you down the road. And I'll see you guys down the road. Most importantly, hope you guys had a great weekend. Stay healthy, stay safe, stay sane, and we are slowly getting back out there, so we will rise again. Thank you guys for all your questions. I appreciate it, and I appreciate you. See you down the road.